Hey gang, how's it going? So, I noticed that one of my most popular videos, and one of my most constructive videos, is about song structure. And I've been thinking about how to build on what I put out in that video, as it's clearly a popular topic and there's obviously demand to know more. In the future, I do want to talk about pop composition ideas in terms of structure, and I do want to talk about stylistic structures, so common things in jazz, common structures in blues, rock, so forth. But I also want to talk about non-popular music, non-contemporary music structures, not only because I want an excuse to reinforce my knowledge of historical music and historical music structures, but also because I think it creates an interesting opportunity for contemporary music creators. Like, why shouldn't we have hip-hop sonatas, right? So that's what we're going to start on today, and I hope to do quite a few more of these soon. So I present to you very, very brief guide to sonata and sonata form. There's actually two things we mean when we say sonata. Maybe that's why people struggle to define sonata sometimes. A sonata and sonata form are two different things. Originally, in the Baroque period, the word sonata just means an instrumental piece of music. That's it, nothing more complicated than that. But as we move into the classical period, they took on separate meanings. A sonata is basically a genre of music. It's essentially pop music for the classical period. Sonatas are multi-movement instrumental compositions for solo instruments. You can have sonatas for violin, cello, flute, and piano. And they're usually accompanied by a piano if piano isn't the solo instrument. Yeah? You can think of movements as basically being like an individual track from an album. They work great as standalone pieces of music, but they also can be listened to in the wider context of an album. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's enough for the purpose of this video. Each movement is usually named after the speed at which it is played, which by modern standards is weird. So you could have, for example, the Liam Taylor Sonata No. 2, which would then include an allegro, an andante, and a rondo. One of these movements, usually the first, but sometimes the last and sometimes the middle one, will be in sonata form, which is a different thing. Sonata form is a particular musical structure originating from the mid-18th century. It was super popular as a style to the extent that a lot of pieces were made for home hobbyists to just play for themselves or for the enjoyment of their family. Music in sonata form will have three sections: an exposition, a development, and a recapitulation. Sometimes there will be an introduction section as well, although that's not mandatory. The cool thing about sonata form is that these three different sections describe what happens. So let's take a look at those in detail. Exposition. This is where listeners are exposed to musical ideas for the first time. There are two central melodies referred to as the first subject and the second subject. The first subject will be in the tonic key, surprisingly, usually major. The second subject will be in a new but related key, often the dominant, the fifth, or the relative minor. There is a transition between these two sections called a bridge, and the ending of the exposition is called a codetta. Codetta can be only a few bars in length, but when you play that, you then have to go back to the start and repeat. So the whole structure of an exposition will be theme 1, bridge, theme 2, codetta, theme 1, bridge, theme 2, codetta. The next section is development, where we hear developments of the material from the exposition. It will start in the same key as the exposition ended and will usually move through several keys, tempos, or rhythms, making them pretty crazy and pretty dramatic. The final section is the recapitulation, where material from the exposition is repeated. That's where the recap in recapitulation comes from. Material is repeated in a more brief, summary kind of way. We'll also hear the first and second subjects from the development played in the tonic key. that is basically sonata and sonata form. We made quite a few broad strokes here in the name of making sense, and we did so without listening to any sonatas, so I suggest that you go and listen to as many sonatas and as much sonata form as you possibly can. And you can do that now that you have the knowledge with which to enjoy these pieces of music, other than on a abstract, ooh, that sounds nice kind of level. Composers of note from the classical period include Haydn, Mozart and Beethoven, and later composers from the Romantic period include Chopin, Liszt and Brahms. I hope that's been interesting and helpful to you. I hope that some of you are encouraged to try and write contemporary music in sonata or sonata form. I would get a massive kick out of that personally. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't yet. Leave any comments in the comment section below. Hit the like button as well. That'd be nice. And I will see you next Friday at 4 PM GMT. Toodaloo.